My name is Janet Heckman, and I want to first of all say during the day, you've had the opportunity to hear a lot of government officials, international experts, people from IFIs, potential investment banks, but today you're here for the real business, the real panel. Here you have the companies that are the backbone of Kazakhstan, where the real potential and the real future of the country exists. So we're really lucky to have here today on our panel 5 of the biggest companies working and actually producing and investing in Kazakhstan. So Kazatomprom, BCC, Air Astana, Halyk Bank, and KazakGaz, as well as Samruk-Kazyna, who is responsible for a good portion of the domestic economy of Kazakhstan. So without further ado, I'd like to start this session with a video message from Mr. Edward Knight, who is the Executive Vice Chairman of Nasdaq, and Nasdaq is one of the shareholders of AIX, and it also provides the trading platform that AIX uses. If I can draw your attention to the screen, please.
Greetings from the Nasdaq market site at Times Square in New York City. I'm Ed Knight, the Executive Vice Chair of Nasdaq. On behalf of all my colleagues at Nasdaq, I am honored to speak to you and congratulate AIX on hosting the Astana Finance Days Forum. Nasdaq is proud of its strategic partnership with AIX and our role in supplying technology to a critical element of the Kazakhstan economic infrastructure. Now more than ever, your market is needed to fuel the continued growth of your economy. Now more than ever, the world needs the continued growth of your economy as the world struggles to find energy and food resources. Now more than ever, the importance of modern, well-regulated, agile markets has never been more important. Critically, you have proven to be resilient and innovative in serving your investors and stakeholders. Despite the strains caused by the pandemic and global market turmoil, your market has been strong, steady, and reliable. Despite many challenges, you were able to successfully execute on your vision and become one of the first global markets to migrate to the cloud. In doing so, you have ensured your market is well protected from financial crime and cyber attacks. This far-sighted move will position you well to serve global investors and continue to fuel economic growth in Kazakhstan. Nasdaq is proud to have been on this journey with you. We are optimistic that your country will not only thrive with your help, but play a critical role in solving global economic challenges. We are excited about the bright future ahead for AIX and Kazakhstan. Nasdaq sends our best wishes for a successful forum, and we invite you to visit the market site when you are next in New York City. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that gives you an idea of the depth and breadth of AIFC and AIX. I believe that all of you, if we turn now to our panel discussion, I believe all of you would agree that Kazakhstan is being influenced by many aspects of the current global crisis. One of the, I suppose we should say, positive side benefits is the opportunity for Kazakhstan to benefit from the potential need for the current global need for energy. Kazakhstan has defined one of its own key comparative advantages is in meeting the growing demand for uranium. And Kazatomprom has already been working towards establishing new nuclear fuel cycle production facilities. And since Kazatomprom was the first company listed on AIX, I'd like to start this panel session with brief presentation of the company. Mr. Batyrbayev, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your introduction. Greetings, everyone. So I'm expecting that everyone actually knows what kind of company Kazatomprom is. So as long as we're the first IPO company, and we have to start all our presentations, all our messages with disclaimer, that's an obligatory part that we have to go through. Yeah. So generally, Kazatomprom is a national company which was established in 1997, and actually at that time Kazakhstan was not even on the map of nuclear uranium producers. So in 20 years, situation had changed completely. So producing from 1,000 ton, we actually in 20 years went to becoming the largest producer in the world, to bringing our production to 24.6 thousand tons in 2016. So all of this was supported by the so-called nuclear renaissance and great boom in nuclear commodities, in the kind of commodity super cycle that we have seen in 2000s till the financial crisis in 2008. So now Kazatomprom is let's say Kazakhstan is more than 40% of the global nuclear market, where Kazatomprom attributably has almost 23%. All this production was reached by establishing a joint ventures with world leaders in nuclear. So we have joint ventures with Chinese companies, with Japanese companies, with Russian, with French, and with Canadian ones as well. So kind of what we are bringing not only in production, but starting from 2018, we're not only leaders in producing, but we are also leaders in selling of uranium. So, and from 2020, I think we are also kind of achieved the tag of being the greatest company in terms of income as well, not only in the volume of sales. So, but again, we could be comparing ourselves only with listed companies and those who publish their financial results. So that's in terms of ESG, which is the most important topic in nowadays. We are also acquiring an ESG rating this year. We hope that we will get it, and actually our method of producing, we use ISR method. It's recognized as the world cleanest method, which does not generate any waste. So in that sense, we're kind of moving forward. Our corporate governance is also kind of well rated, and the second year in a row, our corporate governance rating is A. So here, I'd like to turn your attention to what we have in our industry, actually, with all the decarbonization part, with all the ESG stuff. So kind of, clean energy is becoming a very hot topic. It's so there is a Paris Agreement which states the targets for most of the countries to kind of come to the carbon neutrality by 2050 or 2060, and Kazakhstan also took several commitments. So based on that, I mean, nuclear has been recognized as a part of the solution. So it's a baseload energy source that is recognized as clean. And with all the renewables, I mean, this is a good package to actually help the countries to shift to decarbonization. So based on World Nuclear Association estimation that they have made, I mean, nuclear is going to grow almost twice by 2040, and generation of electricity is going to increase more than 50%. So that's a good demand story, which we are actually considering to capture. So as long as Kazakhstan and Kazatomprom are dominating on that market in terms of production and sales, we're looking forward to kind of becoming the good partner for that industry and help all the countries that are going to invest into nuclear to help them to provide the fuel. So in terms of our diversification and customer base. I mean, we have customers from all over the world. I mean, in the last 3 years, I think we captured all the customers available in the world. So we've made the deliveries to every country. Our recent kind of wins on the tenders were Romania, Brazil, and Argentina. So we are partnering with everyone. We have a strong customer base. It's very well diversified. So in that sense, we're feeling very comfortable. Logistically, we're also seeing some challenges, but we started those diversification to make sure that we could be fully flexible. We established the Trans-Caspian route for our cargo, but still we have our main delivery route through Russia, which is also available. At the same time, after we kind of went to IPO, we have changed our approach for sales and marketing, and we have established a trading house in Switzerland, which gives us full flexibility in terms of price offering and contract management. So we can be reflecting or responding to very quick deals, which our customers approach us. So at the same time, we have a representative office in US, and US is the biggest market at the moment. So we would like to be kind of fully flexible for our customers and make sure that we will get their response in time as our main competitors does. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to take this opportunity to ask you a question that actually wasn't on the prepared script. Perhaps as the first company to have done the IPO, can you talk about what the benefit was for the company, not in terms of the additional financial resources you generated, but in terms of what it meant for this change in the structure of the company and how it benefited Kazatomprom?
Well, thank you. That's I guess, a very good question. Well, IPO was a great challenge for the whole company. We had to restructure, and we had to bring a structure, change a strategy. We had some businesses that were not actually our core businesses, so we had to change it completely. So now we have the focus only for uranium, especially uranium mining. So we searched the whole nuclear fuel cycle. We found out that the most attractive and profitable part is mining for Kazatomprom, but also we keep kind of our foot in all other parts of the nuclear fuel cycle. So whenever they become profitable and attractive, kind of, we will be there. At the same time, that gave us the transparency that we didn't have before. So now our financial reports are available. So whatever we say has to be justified and true. So we take care about what we're saying and what we're showing. And as long as we're audited by Big Four and everything is on AIX and London Stock Exchange, I mean, our words become incredible. So that credibility actually transferred to the trust from the customers. That's, I guess, the biggest advantage. That's what I can say from our part.
And Janet, if I may, I think Askar didn't mention about the corporate governance, because with a new corporate governance after being listed at London Stock Exchange, we see absolutely different story at Kazatomprom. I mean, the chairman of the board is INET. All INETs are staying on the other side, protecting the rights of minority shareholders. And we basically treat Kazatomprom as a benchmark for all our companies towards being there, towards going for IPO with them. So I think it's worth mentioning corporate governance.
Thank you, Yernar.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent point, and I also think it's a good lead-in for our next company, Astana. I've had the pleasure to be on the board of Astana the last 2 years, and I've certainly seen over that period and over the previous time I've been involved with Astana, the great changes that preparation for IPO has made in the company. But just to go back a little bit, during my time as EBRD director in Kazakhstan, when I had to cite an example of why companies should consider investment in Kazakhstan, I always cited Astana. Why? Because 20 years ago, two investors, BAE and Samruk-Kazyna, invested $17 million to start Astana. As Peter joked this morning, $17 million wouldn't even buy you a 3-bedroom apartment in Mayfair, London right now. So, and over that time period, Astana has returned to shareholders more than $140 million in dividends. Astana, unlike all of the European airlines and most of the American airlines, during the 2-year crisis of the pandemic, you didn't see Astana take a penny in state aid. And for the past 10 years, it's been consistently voted the best airline in Central Asia and in India. So there's a real success story to be told, and I'll hand over the discussion right now to Peter Foster.
Thank you, Janet. Thanks very much. And it's a pleasure to have you on the board. I think it's been more than 2 years, Janet, actually. I think, yep, I think you've been
it just seems like it.
Yeah, Janet was one of course, you should have perhaps given a disclaimer before you started. You were one of our very best customers during your time as the head of the EBRD for all those years in Kazakhstan. And it's an absolute pleasure to see you back here today, Janet. So have you read the disclaimer? Good. So, in this day and age, actually, as the airline industry recovers, I'm not quite sure, in fact, I pretty much am sure, would I rather be running an airline or being the caretaker of a 2-bedroom flat in Mayfair? Probably the second of those two things at the moment. Because it is quite a challenging time for the airline industry. And just to put this into context, many of you will have come, of course, from Europe, some of you from the US, and of course, obviously, many of you locally here. And you'll have seen that things are quite difficult. Traveling around at the moment is a challenge, to say the least. And just to put this into context, as of now, 75% of the pre-COVID capacity, 75% of flights in the US and Europe are operating again. So we are now operating in Europe and the US, the industry that is, at 75% of 2019's capacity. In Asia, that's only 24%. And of course, obviously, a huge amount of that is driven by China and now Japan, but only 24%. So Asia has only recovered by 1 quarter. In Astana, we're operating at 110% of 2019. So we have recovered very quickly, but the industry as a whole, and we did not do this, in fact, in 2020, 2021, but the industry as a whole cut back on a huge amount of its resources and its future investments. And those were decisions obviously driven by the pandemic. And they were driven by the need to deliver cost savings. But what they did not do was to take into account how quickly the industry would recover. And when you think about it, it's pretty obvious, is it not, that come 2000, or come the moment where governments lifted the restrictions on people traveling, it was pretty damned obvious that everybody was going to tear off to their laptop or their travel agent and book a foreign holiday. And that's exactly what's happened, of course. Quite apart from the fact that business people have all got on a plane to restart their businesses, as evidenced by vast numbers of you here today. So whilst this was entirely predictable, it wasn't predictable by the world's airports or in large measure airlines, and that's why it is an extremely difficult period at the moment. And of course we are caught up in this because although we actually didn't make anybody redundant, we have to live and operate at those same airports, in those same air traffic systems, etc., etc. That's a rather long-winded way of saying that if your flight's been delayed on Air Astana for the last 2 days, I'm very sorry. But if I might just very briefly talk about where we are. Many of you know these statistics, of course, already. We have the youngest fleet, one of the youngest fleets in the world today. We have recovered from COVID very quickly. In fact, our recovery really was in 2021. We enjoyed 2021 because we were recovering when nobody else was. So we had all these airports to ourselves. Now, unfortunately, we have to share them. But at any rate, things are recovering very quickly, and that is very gratifying. I just wanted to spend a bit of time in the 2 minutes and 2 seconds left to me to talk very briefly about Flight Aristan, because the last time we all gathered here for this forum, Flight Aristan was only a gleam in our imagination, Evgenia, as you remember at the time. It didn't exist. Today, it's an 11-aircraft low-cost airline, a pure classic low-cost airline, the only one operating in this region. And you can see from that map there in front of you that, there's a lot of low-cost airlines operating in the world today, but there's only one genuine low-cost airline operating in this region. Now, I'm aware that you lot in this room don't look like the usual type of low-cost passengers, but believe me, this is the fastest growing segment in the world today and has been for many years. After recessions, it's a proven fact that low-cost airlines grow or recover far faster than full-service airlines. And that quite simply is because you have this pent-up demand for travel that we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, with, of course, obviously a degraded ability to spending power, made worse on this particular occasion by inflation. So low-cost airlines do well after recessions. Flight Aristan is no exception. It grew at 550% last year. It carried very nearly the same number of passengers as Air Astana, obviously much lower revenue because it's low cost. But this really is one of the great opportunities that we have presented, not only, well, most importantly, to the traveling public in Kazakhstan and the region in these last 2 years, but obviously in the context of this forum and the context of this building and our shareholders. Now, I can't talk about any capital events, market capital events that we may or may not have planned in the next year or so. Obviously, I'm not permitted to do so. But were I permitted to speculate, it would be a reasonable if you like, element of speculation to state that were there ever to be a capital event involving Air Astana, the fact that Air Astana consists of 2 airlines, a highly successful full-service airline, and one of the fastest growing low-cost airlines in the world, would mean that investors in such a project would be getting 2 airlines for the price of 1. I see my time's expired, so I'll just very briefly run through these last 2 slides. We are a very low-cost airline, not only flying Air Astana, but the Air Astana Group. And the airline business, of course, is all about cost. That is the battleground on which we fight. And finally, it would be entirely remiss of me not to say that we take our environmental responsibilities very seriously. We manifest this commitment through the acquisition of new engine technology. We have one of the youngest fleets in the world that I mentioned, and of course that has dramatically reduced our carbon footprint per what we call revenue passenger kilometre, the unit of measurement, if you like, in terms of sustainability in the airline industry. We have not made any sort of, if you like, dramatic announcements towards net zero at this point, because obviously in our case that leads in only one direction at the moment, which is offset, and we're not yet in a position to make that commitment. But I think what this demonstrates is that we have an absolute commitment to operating an airline that is environmentally far more sustainable, not only to ourselves in the past, but also to the, in comparison to the industry at large. So I'm over my time. Thank you very much. Janet.
Thank you, Peter. Your comments on Astana are particularly welcome in light of the comments earlier today by the speakers in the first session today on the importance of regional development. And certainly Fly Astana has created its own market in Kazakhstan and has provided a lot of regional connectivity. One question many people have been asking is, what is the impact of the sanctions on Russia and Astana, and how was the business reconfigured in order to cope with the loss of Ukraine and Russian markets?
Yes, thanks for that question, Janet. It's obviously extremely relevant. We stopped flying to, from, and over the Russian Federation on the 11th of March. 7 o'clock in the morning, and that was when our insurance underwriters withdrew coverage for all of those flights. Since that time, actually, other key business partners and service providers have also imposed restrictions and sanctions. So we now have a sort of, if you like, a multi-layered sanctions regime that means that really there's no prospect in the immediate future of us flying to, from, or over the Russian Federation. And of course, obviously, Ukraine itself. That represents, or represented, about 11% of the network. Actually, demand is so strong for Turkey, Greece, Thailand, Korea, domestic, Georgia, the Caucasus, India, etc., etc., etc. Demand is so strong that we have no problem absorbing that capacity onto other routes. So in terms of, in fact, the financial performance of the company is dare I say it, airline CEOs tend to be sort of glass half empty types, but dare I say it, the prospects for this year are positive. We have absorbed all of that extra capacity very quickly. We have to remind ourselves that, you know, COVID had led to a situation whereby we were far from having restored all of our flights to Russia prior to the invasion. So, you know, we were only operating at about, I think, about 25% of what we had traditionally operated to Russia prior to the invasion on the 24th. So it wasn't quite as much of a shock as it might have been 2 years ago, for example. So in terms of absorbing that capacity, it's been absolutely fine, no problem. The issue we've had, of course, is the extra flying time to Europe. We have to fly now well south of the Black Sea, of course. That means that flights to Frankfurt and Amsterdam are an extra 90 minutes, and flights to London, unfortunately, we have to do a fuel stop on the Caspian at Aktau. So that's inconvenient and it's costly, and we've had to impose fuel surcharges on that. But we've had to learn to live with this, and I guess we're going to have to learn to live with it for a considerable time to come.
Thank you, Peter. A continuing good story and a success story. Also a success story in the banking sector. Another company which I'm very familiar with from my days in Kazakhstan is Bank CenterCredit. BCC recently purchased the local subsidiary of Alpha Bank. Its Russian parent company was sanctioned by the US earlier this year. I'd like to congratulate BCC on this successful deal. And could you please share with us the recent developments in the bank and the industry, and in particular, how you've coped with one crisis after the next?
Thank you very much for introduction. Really, it was an interesting deal for us, and I want to present you a short presentation about our CenterCredit and about the industry, how I see it. So CenterCredit is a bank. We are today is 34, and so we are the oldest bank in Kazakhstan, the private bank. And if you talk about the Alpha Bank, so For us, it's not like an acquisition, it's a merger, because we are going to not to lose all the benefits of the Alpha Bank and to implement all the corporate culture and products which Alpha had in the local market, and to get to our clients the best solutions and best products. And our outcomes, it's 2 million retail customers, 150,000 business clients, and we are going to be a second largest universal bank in Kazakhstan after Halyk. If we are talk about our future, I think the future it's in the open API and integration with the non-financial services. I think is the future of the banking. Not only our bank going in this sector. I think all the banks now operate in the non-financial services, and we are going to develop the non-financial services and integrations with the GovTech, and I think it's the mainstream now in Kazakhstan. Many banks going there. But what about I want to tell today? I think we should pay attention more to the bank sectors, and bank sector in Kazakhstan has a lot of problems, and I want to present them, some of them. It's my ideas. First of all, what we can see that the top 10 banks accumulate almost 90% of the all banks' assets. I think it's too much. And the number of domestic banks in the country is less than 10. And the total number of banks by the end of this year will be got down to 21. I think we should pay attention to this problem because our sector became less than before this. And what the problems? I think if we look to this diagram, we can see that loan portfolio of the bank sector is growing mainly in retail segment. It's a really big problem. And retail lending boosts import, bringing pressure on the trade balance, which results in pressure on the exchange rate and high inflation in Kazakhstan. And I think it's really a problem because we have lack of supply that cannot grow without well-developed corporate finance. And why it happens? To my opinion, it's some really problems in corporate finance in Kazakhstan. And the corporate sector has regulatory and legal imbalances. Corporate clients are not ready to comply with Basel III. I think it's a really big problem. AQR was conducted more strictly than the IFRS 9 and didn't take into account the aspects of our environment. We have a Lombard financing, while collection and collateral regulations are becoming stricter every year. And lack of long-term liquidity for financing of investment projects. I think it's problem of the future, because now we don't have any liquidity problems in short-term liquidity, but the long-term liquidity it's a real problem for Kazakhstan. So the next problem is no access to the state data for borrowers, for assess our borrowers, and to get a really quality risk assessment of our clients. What we can do to get these problems? I think we should customize AQR requirements to our realities, and we should prioritize rights of secured creditors. It's a really big problem for Kazakhstan now. Development of subsoil use and land use right markets. I think it's a really big opportunity for Kazakhstan. Now we really have a lack of using the collateral as a subsoil use and land use. And for our businessmen, it can be a really good opportunity to take a finance and avoid the affairs now for the collateral, but we should develop this market. We don't have a market of the subsidiary rights now. The next one is simplification of the bankruptcy procedures and reduction of loopholes in avoiding defaults. It's really a problem. For example, in our company, we have a bankruptcy of our client for 10 years and more, and it's really a problem because a lot of loopholes allow to our companies avoid the defaults, and we are like creditors don't have a right to get our money back. The second, I think, really problem is our pension saving fund, and I think we should reform them, and we should create a really institutional investors in Kazakhstan. This sector is now not developed, so for long investments, for long liquidity, we need investors, and first of all, of course, it's institutional investors. Without them, we cannot develop the long liquidity sector in Kazakhstan. The next is uniformity of court decision on debt collection. I think it's really a problem for our court. The next one is state programs should include distressed assets and to involve them in turnover and boost demand. It's really a problem. For example, we have state support for the create, for example, if you take elevator for agriculture, grain elevator, and we have a support to build one new one, but we don't have any programs. It's prohibited to, for example, buy the elevator, existing elevator. I think it's really freeze our old investments which we've done in Kazakhstan, and maybe it can. And it's in effect not effective using the investments which have done before, and for a macroeconomic view, it's a really problem, and we should pay attention for this. And I think two last points I mentioned before. It's increasing bank access to state data for better evolution of borrowers, and API and gas from the state for everyone, which can help us to develop our sector and take more preferences from the data of the government, and to give our clients best solutions and best products. Thank you very much. That's all.
Mr. Khusainov, thank you very much for your extremely practical suggestions too on what can be done to improve the banking sector in Kazakhstan. Over the last 2 years, the banking sector, like the corporate sector in Kazakhstan and the globe really, has had to deal with the pandemic crisis, and then quickly followed in Kazakhstan by the events in January, and then the effects of the Ukrainian situation. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about what can be done in the banking sector to be better prepared for turbulent times, and how BCC has coped with these crisis situations.
Thank you for the question. Of course, it's a very extreme situation now with conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the general situation which was in Kazakhstan, but all the banks has plans which we are implemented in our risk scenarios, and of course for each of this situation we had a plan, and one of them we used, for example, in January. But for the future, I think we should be all the banks, maybe in BCC too, we maybe should be more risky and assess all the future from this situation, and maybe when we take a decision for our assessing the clients, maybe take in mind this situation and maybe decrease now the borrowers and give the loans to our clients. I think it's now we should see, only wait and understand what will be future, and when we understand really the end of this crisis moment, maybe after this we can maybe should be less risky than now. Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, as we've seen with your acquisition, there are also opportunities as well as risks.
Yes, of course, all the crisis give us opportunity. I think Alpha was an opportunity for us, of course, in this situation.
Thanks. As we saw from this presentation, banks can actually ride the disruptive wave of the global crisis if they adapt to change and if they challenge the status quo a bit. Halyk Bank is not just one of the top credit institutions in Kazakhstan, it also has the largest customer base and branch network across the country. It's also part owner of Altin Bank, one of the top consumer high-end consumer banks in the country. Its ratings were recently confirmed by the big three rating agencies, which have once again shown adherence to the right strategic courses. And I'd like to ask Mr. Khusainov to elaborate a bit more about the strategy of the bank and perhaps about how you feel your corporate customers are adapting to this environment.
Thank you, Janet. Since we having this event in Astana Stock Exchange, let me remind you that Halyk Bank is now the oldest truly public company, because we have been listing on the London Stock Exchange since 2006, and now currently our shares are listed on London Stock Exchange, Kazakhstan Stock Exchange, and Astana Stock Exchange. And we have free float of 30%, and next to institutional investors across the globe and in Kazakhstan, we also have now more than 50,000 retail investors. So we are ready for IPO of KazMunaiGaz and any future IPOs. I think our clients and our shareholders also ready to participate, our retail base, obviously. We have been talking about the operating environment today a lot, and we as Halyk Bank during our public history went through a number of them, like global financial crisis, 2014, 2015, and we thought that 2020 was a challenging period. So it seems like with some short breather in 2021, we experiencing much more turbulent 2022. So let's see how we as Halyk Bank first was coping through all this period of time. As you mentioned, all three rating agencies confirmed our ratings this year, but I want to say that also in 2020, when the COVID situation created a big stress to the economy, and because we as Halyk Bank are the largest bank in Kazakhstan dealing with large corporates, SMEs and retail clients, we felt the pain of our clients immediately. We managed to maintain our ratings in 2020 already. And last year, actually, it was a very strong period in terms of rating reactions, because S&P and Fitch upgraded us by 1 notch last year, and Moody's upgraded us by 2 notches. And we managed to defend all three ratings from all three rating agencies this year. And a lot we're saying today about ESG, since we have a special ESG session which is running now in parallel, and now my colleague is talking about a lot, so I didn't put expressly ESG topic here, but I want also to add that last year we had upgrade in our ESG rating, because we also have public ESG rating from MSCI ESG Research, who upgraded our ESG rating to BB. So we see that we have a very resilient response to the crisis. So we have strong capital base. The capital has been reducing, but still is around 19%. And reduction in capital is for two reasons. First of all, we will continue to investing in our credit portfolio in large corporates and SME and retail, as well as we were distributing dividends to our shareholders. And in fact, we have been increasing our dividends payout from 50 to 60%. We also trying to take the positives from the current situation. We actually witnessed that around 1 trillion of deposits had an inflow, both on corporates and retail side. And as well as you probably know, we acquired a big portfolio from Sberbank, which was quite diversified, including retail portfolio, small businesses, medium businesses, and large corporates. On the large corporates and SME business, our recent focus is on digitalization and cross-border synergy. We invested, since 2020, we invested a lot in digitalization proposition to our SME clients. We introduced the digital onboarding and digital credits to our individual entrepreneurs clients back in 2020, and actually time to years for digital credits for individual entrepreneurs is less than 4 minutes. This year in January, and this is irrespective of all the events which we had in January, we launched the digital tender guarantee process. And actually our medium and small enterprises can participate in state-owned tenders and obtain tender guarantees with time to issue these guarantees also within 5 minutes. And actually, this month, we launched the digital onboarding for legal entities for the limited liability partnerships. So it's also an innovative solution. So that helped us to increase our client base almost by 40% in the last 2 years. And we hear a lot of criticism that banks are not financing the real economy. I hope this is not about Halyk Bank, because we were significantly investing and supporting our clients during the difficult period of time, both on the corporate and SME basis. And our digital solutions is also helping to improve the client journey of our clients. So as you see on these slides, 90% of individual entrepreneurs currently open their accounts with Halyk Bank digitally. So there is no need for them to visit office in order to open account or to take credits. On retail banking, actually where digitalization actually started, we continue to further build our main platform called Halyk Home Bank. And you see that the number of monthly active users actually increased almost 4 times in last 2 years, which actually also helped us to improve proposition to our clients. And you see the percentage of digital loans and online credits which clients again can obtain and get the service through Halyk Home Bank also increased substantially. 3 out of 4 loans obtained by our retail clients through Halyk Home Bank. We further improving the services to our retail clients through developing our ecosystem. And we list a few of them, like in the same Halyk Home Bank platform, clients can apply for auto insurance in digital format again. We were the first player on the market who offers digital. We were first entity who offered digital tickets to buses this year. So now people can travel intercity by purchasing tickets also online. The market trend also to develop a marketplace. We have our own Halyk marketplace, and we have plans also to expand it further, probably outside of Kazakhstan. We're looking at Uzbekistan at this point of time. And Halyk Invest, this is the solution which we launched with our subsidiary, Halyk Finance. And the number of clients currently is 55,000, and it's continued to increase. And as I said, our client base is ready for any future IPOs, which I hope will happen soon in Kazakhstan. KinoKZ, this is the platform where people can get tickets, and actually this platform is a big success within our group. The number of tickets which was sold year-over-year basis increased almost 10 times. Actually, every fourth ticket, so 1 in 4 tickets to cinemas now is sold through KinoKZ. And I'm talking not about only online tickets, but also offline tickets. And another success is government services, GovTech. We have a lot of different solutions. You can see it here, and we saw that 5 million times this service has been sought or used by our clients since the beginning of this year.
Thank you very much. It's certainly quite an achievement to have been able to continue to support and to strongly support the companies during the very difficult 2 years of the pandemic, and yet to at the same time not just keep your ratings, but actually increase them. It's a situation many banks globally would love to be in. Perhaps if you could tell me during the pandemic, which companies sectors were successful, and what do you see as the prospects for Kazakh companies moving forward? Because as a banker, you would be in a position to get to know what are the successful, what are the reasons for success, and what are the successful sectors.
This was actually not the first crisis which Kazakhstan had in recent history. So I think most of Kazakh businesses who survived during 2008, 2009, 2014, 2015, I think they have been morally probably prepared to different situations. And those companies who had a management who was kind of had a plan B, who was spent the good period of times in order to have a good liquidity, good profile, tenor profile of their liability payments, who was in a good shape. I think they were quite successful. I think for 2020, most of our clients were in much better shape than it was in previous periods. But this crisis was a bit different because it came from area where no one was expected, and even some companies which were probably prepared for any normal economic crisis were caught in difficult situation, because in some cases there was a government who was kind of saying for companies not to do the business because they stopped different activities. So we as the bank, I think, took a decision that if we saw that the company strategically is in good shape, so we were ready to support, and thankfully we supported quite a big number of companies, from large corporate to SME and small businesses. And I think that we see that it's clearly paid off, because we increased the client base substantially during this period of time.
Thank you. It's certainly a real success story. We're very happy to have this year at our Capital Markets Forum the former KazTransGaz, now called KazakGaz. It's the largest gas supply company in Kazakhstan. It represents the interests of the state on both domestic and the international gas market. And as a past four-year resident of the beautiful city of Almaty, I in particular knew what the skies could look like during the winter with the pollution effect. And I was just waiting for when the lines would extend from Kizlyarda via Almaty to the Chinese border in order to provide gasification, hopefully, of some of those coal power plants. So it's my great pleasure to now hand over the floor to the chairman of the management board, Mr. Zharkeshov.
Thank you, Janet. I've got good news for you about Almaty power plants. So can you load the presentation, please? The slides. In terms of the, when I was thinking about today's panel, investing in the priority sectors of the economy, I was thinking, what should I tell? And I think the question is, what is the next big thing for Kazakhstan? What is the new story for attracting the foreign direct investments? And the answer is gas. It's not because I work for the gas company, it's the global trend. So I want to share some insights, in particular about the energy transition, decarbonization, and all kinds of good things that comes from gas. In terms of the few decades of foreign direct investments in Kazakhstan, we've enjoyed good prices. And obviously, every foreign direct investment comes with ups and downs, but overall, it's been good. So if you look at the investment in oil and gas industry, we've been enjoying some good revenues to the national budget. But if you look where we are right now in 2022, the question is, what is the next big thing that's going to keep our investors investing in Kazakhstan? So we've got some other hopes about, the other phases of Kashagan and other oil assets, but gas is definitely going to be the next disruptor. Why? Because gas sits in the break-even and in the cost of the whole economy, and we are gasifying the Kazakhstan all over the country, and over the last 5 years, the internal consumption grew by 50%. It's unprecedented. Exponential growth is going to continue not only in Kazakhstan, but also in China, Pakistan, and India. So KazakGaz positions itself as a regional player, not only as a national company in Kazakhstan. So if you think about where the profit is, and obviously with the geopolitical crisis we see with gas is in the center of attention, and we've got a lot of gas potential in Kazakhstan and Russia, and we've got deficit countries, gas deficit countries like China, Pakistan, and India that are growing very fast, need gas, and we are in between profit and deficit. So we need to realize Kazakhstan as a Central Asian gas transit hub, and we're sitting on a vast amount of gas resources, and I think building pipelines to transport that gas from profit countries to deficit countries, building the new gas processing plants so we can convert the natural gas to the trade gas ready for consumption in the chemical industry from the gas, because gas is basically a raw material for all kinds of good things that we use on a daily basis. And KazakGaz is also pushing all kinds of interesting projects on that, and also the R&D center of competency of gas industry in Kazakhstan. We need to realize this disruptive factor. The opportunity is there, we just need to go grab it. So if you think about the ESG journey, the journey to the net zero, obviously we've got a commitment, but if you look at the foresight that's been published by the Ministry of Energy and the international agencies, until 2050 we've got the energy balance that looks like this, that composed of the coal, gas, wind, solar, and renewables. But the blue side of this is the gas. Is a transition fuel, and it's all over the world. It's a hot topic now, right? So by 2030, the electricity generation needs to be 25 to 30% produced from gas. So otherwise, we will not meet our energy transition goals. So the good news, the bad news is that we've got a big risk not to be able to achieve that, because the gas industry needs a lot of support right now. It needs to be reformed completely. That's why, thanks to the president, KazTransGaz was separated from KazMunaiGaz, made a standalone national company, so that we can pay a proper attention to the gas industry. Because all these years, to be honest, gas wasn't a priority. Gas was a problem. Because of the oil assets, if you want to produce more liquids, you need to get rid of gas. It was a problem. All of a sudden, gas is a big asset. It's a big resource right now. So we need to make sure that it's attractive to investors. At the moment, we've got hurdles that we're changing, And as a new national company, as a new leadership, we are doing our best to change the legislation and push some interesting projects. But again, we are the enablers for the energy transition to the decarbonization of the economy, so we can make sure that we can meet our commitments on the Paris Agreement. So we're coming up with a new transformation program called KazaqGaz, meaning renewed KazakGaz. So that should become the vehicle to achieve our energy transition goals. So we've got 5 pillars. First is increasing the trade gas resource. As we said, we've got a lot of gas, but the trade gas is a challenge, right? So in the next slide, I'm going to talk about where we have gas. But we've got a lot of ready for production assets that needs to be invested. As I said, all the attention has been paid to oil. Now we need to switch to gas. And the good news is we've got a lot of gas. Second was the development of the domestic market. And as the President said many times in many platforms, that we need to make sure that we supply population, the domestic market first of all, and then think about exports, right? So we are gasifying the country in an exponential growth. We're inviting in the PPP mechanisms to build the distribution networks, and also socially just, socially fair reforms of gas pricing. Number 3 is gas transit and export potential. Obviously, after satisfying the domestic markets, we need to think about the export, and we do have export commitments to China, and we want to be a trusted partner, so we need to grow our resource base so we can supply gas to the promised levels and generate revenue so we can subsidize the internal market. And again, Kazakhstan needs to become the Central Asian gas transit hub. Downstream gas processing chemistry is a huge potential, so we need to think about high value-added products like methanol, sulfur, blue ammonia, etc. The fifth one, obviously, investment in operational effectiveness. We are thinking about IPO. We are doing a lot of housekeeping, a lot of homework. We're obtaining our ESG ranking this year, sustainable development goals, and a lot of efforts to prepare for IPO. So to realize all these disruptive factors, as I said on the first slide, what do we need to do? There are a lot of government public policy documents that are being produced right now, like strategy for achieving carbon neutrality. A lot of tremendous work is being done by the Ministry of National Economy on all the government bodies. We've just, last week, we've approved the comprehensive plan for development of the gas industry per the order of the decree of the President of Kazakhstan. And also, we are coming up with our KazakGaz new strategy. But all this needs to be married into a single overarching document called Energy Security and Energy Transition Strategy of Kazakhstan. So KazakGaz is volunteering its candidacy to lead this effort, because somebody needs to integrate this to a comprehensive strategy. The good news is Kazakhstan has a lot of gas. 3.8 trillion cubic meters of gas is enough for more than 100 years. 62 trillion cubic meters is of resources, more than many years. So these are the map of the geological structures of Kazakhstan, only gas. I haven't shown oil here in purpose. So sedimentary basins of Kazakhstan are super promising. So these are the ready assets that we can exercise as a national company, our priority right to basically get the cream of the crop, the best fields, and attract investors and be a trusted partner for investors to de-risk their investments and make sure they're successful. Because we count on investors. We need to make sure they're successful, and then the country will be successful. Some of the projects, upstream and midstream and downstream, and midstream in particular, the storage and transportation. As I said, we need to be the transit hub between the proficit countries to the deficit countries. Huge potential, tens of billion cubic meters per year can be transported. There will be new Bazor-Shymkent, the gas pipeline, and the thermal power plant, Janet, we are gasifying it, so it's going to be converted to gas, and this is the initiative made by the President. We're pushing for that, and also the upstream exploration production assets like Rashkovskaya field or Pridorozhny, and these are just a couple of examples, but we've got dozens of interesting assets. And lastly, downstream processing at the Kashagan gas processing plant that is aimed at utilizing gas from Kashagan. Instead of injecting it, use it for population, use it for domestic consumption, and then for export capabilities. Very lucrative projects, high return on investment, so we invite all the investors to look at these projects in more details. So I would invite that all the investors that gas is the next big thing for Kazakhstan, in investing in energy transition, investing in gas, in invest with KazakGaz. Thank you.
It really is a great success story, and it's amazing to see how the company has progressed over the years. Can you speak a little bit with the immense needs right now across the world, in particular in areas like Western Europe and Asia for gas? What are the export opportunities for Kazakhstan, and what sort of timetable would it take to be in a position to export significant quantities?
So as I said, increasing our resource base is a #1 goal for Kazakhstan right now. So it's our equity story. The whole strategy, as we said, and the 5 pillars is making sure we're ready for the energy transition and making sure that we can deliver on the commitments on our exports. Unfortunately, we don't have direct access to the European market. It's basically Russia's deal, and they've got the direct contracts with them. But as I said, we are positioning ourselves as a transit hub, gas transit hub, not only to Europe, to east, to south, to Pakistan, India. So wherever there is a deficit, we can serve as a transit hub. So we're flexible. That's why I can't really commit about the European gas demands. I know they need gas. But we've got gas, so we're going to maximize our, trade gas availability to whoever needs it.
Thanks. Just one more question. Up until, I guess, February this year, really, the pressure from, both from IFIs, World Bank, EBRD, Asian Development Bank, was, green economy, carbon neutral, move away from hydrocarbons. And capital markets, I think, have significantly underinvested in gas as a sector. Do you think this has permanently changed, and do you foresee going forward more open eyes in terms of potential investments in Kazakhstan gas?
I think it's completely changed due to the politics and the geopolitics right now. It's a matter of energy security. So obviously, when you think about the energy transition and energy security, sometimes they are, mutually competing factors. So, but if you look at what's happening in Europe, there is a renaissance of the coal industry. You know how funny that is, right? All the coal mines that have been shut down, they're opening back because of the disruption of the gas supplies, etc. So, thankfully, I work for the gas company, which is a clean energy. So that's why the capital markets are really looking back at gas, because it's a huge hope for energy transition, right? So you can replace coal by gas, super clean, transition fuel. That's why gas industry investment attractiveness is even more relevant, even more viable. So we see a lot of interest from all kinds of institutional investors from capital markets. So I think it's good news for the gas industry. We need to keep showing our equity story to the market, and we are going for all kinds of roadshows to show our projects. I think we'll be able to attract them good investors.
Thank you. It's certainly a great story for the company and a great story for Kazakhstan. And I personally think it's the wave of the future.
Thank you.
I guess, Yernar, it's a good chance. I mean, you've heard what some of the companies that work under Samruk-Kazyna have had to say, and the opportunities, the current success stories, and the movement towards privatization. And this morning we also heard about some exciting developments from Mr. Satkaliev. So perhaps if you could share with us what is the current strategy of Samruk.
Thank you, Janet. Again, greetings to everyone. Probably I will not touch the topic of privatization because, as you said, Mr. Satkaliev already covered, and he went through all portfolio companies, major portfolio companies. Again, I believe I am the only one who doesn't have slides, but we've been too busy with a big announcement, I said. So let me just go through probably these 3 portfolio companies and then shift to our projects we are implementing at this stage. So Mr. Batyrbayev said that Kazatomprom is our best company right now, I mean, in our basket. Since we went for IPO, the company pays good dividends, and we basically transfer all these dividends to the state budget. And the company makes it in accordance with their strategy, growing their value. As Mr. Batyrbayev mentioned, they produce around 20% of uranium of the world, uranium production. And through their joint venture partnerships, they even control 40% of uranium. And as I said before, we treat Kazatomprom as a benchmark for all our companies which are going for IPO. Air Astana, Air Astana is a leading airline company. It is a national carrier company in Kazakhstan. And probably it is the only airline company in Central Asia which operates both full-service airline as well as low-cost segment. And what Peter didn't mention is that Air Astana has got a charismatic leader. I think, I mean, you mentioned about cash injections around $70 million and payback over 100. And I think it couldn't be happen without good effort of both team and the good leader. So, Peter. Yeah. And of course, Mr. Zharkeshov just shared, he basically joined the company a few months ago, but by this time they've already approved their new strategy, which targets bringing value, increasing the gas reserves, and we definitely believe that this transformation of gas industry will bring huge potential not only to Samruk-Kazyna but to the whole country. And here I'd like to say that Samruk-Kazyna is not only about these 3 companies. We also have got a number of companies which run state-level projects. And right now on the Samruk-Kazyna coordination, there is a list of 13 urgent infrastructure projects. And these infrastructure projects are different. It is about, for example, shifting of coal-fired conventional power plants to gas power stations in Almaty. It is construction of new coal-fired power plants in the east part of Kazakhstan. It is about water pipeline in the west part of Kazakhstan. Again, railways. And this list of urgent projects cost around 3 trillion tenge and give approximately 15,000 jobs. And everything it is within Kazakhstan, I mean, and it works for the economy of Kazakhstan. But apart from that, Samruk-Kazyna right now is considering dozens of new businesses to start. These are absolutely new industry businesses. For example, construction materials. Right now, basically, like a month ago probably, we visited as a part of official delegation Ankara, Turkey, and signed a number of very interesting documents with high quality partners in order to start certain projects in the construction materials sector. So we are planning to start the projects with final production of ceramic tiles, sandwich panels, door panels. Apart from that, probably most people are aware of our huge petrochemical projects in the west part of Kazakhstan. I believe this September we are going to have the first batch of production at polypropylene project. Under this project, we are planning to produce 500,000 tons of basic petrochemicals, polypropylene, but we are not stopping at this. Right now we are having good discussions, I would say even discussions at the stage of signing certain documents in order to attract high quality investment partners for the following petrochemical projects like polyethylene, gas separation utility, and this is just like two areas I mentioned. So what is my message is that we are ready to welcome all new foreign partners who are ready to provide new technologies, know-hows. What we suggest, we can be a good partner for all of them. We can provide cash, we can inject cash, we can provide full support, I mean working with the government, and we're open. Yeah. That's the key message.
Thank you very much for sharing the not just the success story of the Samruk-Kazyna companies, but also the potential investment sectors for both domestic and international investors looking either to invest in or to work with projects of SK. Here, we're very lucky enough to have one of the world's most modern exchanges, the AIX, and as Mr. Kalmbetov said this morning, the legal side, the arbitration courts, et cetera. Perhaps if you could talk for a couple minutes on how you envision the AIX and the AFIC working with Samruk-Kazyna, and what advantages does it give SK in the ongoing privatization of the SK companies?
Yeah, we work extensively with AFC and the AX authorities. Well, about AX, as it was already announced by the chairman of Samruk-Kazyna, KazMunaiGaz IPO is coming, but definitely I think next year we'll be ready for some other good news. As for AFC and I mean all other facilities we have here, as I mentioned, all these new investors, foreign investors, when they come to Kazakhstan, first thing we propose to open the joint venture here, I mean at the site of AFC. So they have English law. I mean, we provide all guarantees, and basically we use all these opportunities in order to attract all these international partners. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Our time is just about up. I just want to say in conclusion that frontier markets and Kazakhstan in particular has gone through a number of crises in recent years, multiple currency crises, real estate crises, financial panics, government changes, COVID-19 pandemic, January events here, Russia, but yet it's been a test for everyone, and yet we've seen the resilience of the economy here. And today you have an example of one joint venture company, three Samruk-Kazyna companies, and also two very successful private banks who have taken a look, who haven't just dealt with the risks that the crises have, but also the opportunities. We see an airline that realized that business travel wasn't going to come back soon, so switched to leisure destinations and cargo very successfully. We see banks that took opportunities to purchase other financial assets in the country and to use digitalization in order to provide opportunities for retail clients who were struggling to cope with pandemic effects. And we see probably one of the greatest natural gas opportunities in the world being successfully exploited with new opportunities and new ways to manage and market the gas, both for domestic and international needs. So I guess what I want to say is Kazakhstan continues not just to be open for business, but to be very well placed with the institutions it's built over the last few years, and in particular with the AFIC and with AIX, in order to continue to grow and to transform itself during these difficult economic times. So thank you very much.